Hello and welcome to Conversations at College of DuPage, visiting the past and looking ahead. I am Dr. Ann Rondeau, president of the college, and I am pleased to have the opportunity to speak with Dr. Ernie Gibson, a true maker of history in his own right. Dr. Gibson is a retired executive director of business services who worked for College of DuPage from 1966 to 1994. Previously, he joined Dr. Martin Luther King to plan the Montgomery and Birmingham campaigns, the Summer March, and the March on Washington. Welcome, Dr. Gibson, and thank you so much for being with us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Where did you grow up? And tell me a little bit about who and what influenced your life in those growing up years.
Well, I was born in Dania Beach, Florida, which is a small village nestled between Fort Lauderdale and Hollywood, Florida. I'm very proud to say I'm the son of immigrant parents from the nearby Bahamas. I started school there, that is childhood there in school, and later on to further on to New Jersey for the rest of my high school education.
So you went from Bahamas to Florida to New Jersey. And where did you go to school in New Jersey?
I went to a boarding school. It was called Bordentown Manual Training School. Why did I attend military school there? Because the state of Florida, early on, when I perhaps was in the third grade, decided that the state legislature decided that black children should be on a split shift. Split means that during the month of harvest, which is normally September, October, through perhaps February or March, there were no school for black kids. Why? Because they wanted black kids to pick tomatoes, strawberries, oranges, and what have you, gather the crops, so to speak, and what have you. My father did not like that because of the fact that white kids were more or less going to school in a normal situation, and he just couldn't see that his kids would be in school, no air conditioning or nothing, and that's during the summer months. And so we migrated to New Jersey because we had relatives there, and that's why I ended up boarding school. I was accepted at Princeton and the University of Pennsylvania, but I didn't have the funds, adequate funds. So I decided to get a job in Atlantic City, and I worked in Atlantic City on the boardwalk there and at the Kaufman Hotel. Through that venture, I met a dean from Tuskegee University, and he more or less looked into my background, my not knowing that, and found out that I had very good grades from high school, and I was, and he offered me a scholarship to Tuskegee University, and that's how I ended up at Tuskegee.
So you go from Florida to New Jersey, back down south.
Right.
Now, at that time, you were a student. Is that when you met Carolyn, your wife?
Yes, I met Carolyn because in school I was captain of my debate team, and she was captain of her debate team, and she was from the University of Arkansas. We had this showdown at Tuskegee, and we had this debate, and that's how I met her. And it is said that she won the debate, and but I've always said that I allowed her to win it because she was just such a good-looking girl, and I wanted to marry her, and I decided that she was the woman for me.
That's great. Can you even remember what the topic for the debate was?
We debated the Book of Washington. At that time, Book of Washington, founder of Tuskegee University, was saying that the black community, what we needed to do is to learn how to build homes, become plumbers, become carpenters. We need to work with our hands. We need to do the manual kind of concepts, the things that we needed to do. And then there was Dubois. He wanted to have black folk go into medicine and things of this nature. Booker T. Washington was saying we were not ready for that as such. We need to learn how to take care of ourselves in that we're just right out of slavery, so to speak. And we need to work on the basic necessities. And that's the kind of a debate we were having.
So that was a marvelous debate for the nation at that time as the civil rights era was actually beginning to evolve and to mature. That whole debate between W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T was a really a large debate in the country, wasn't it?
Right. And it was a good topic. In a sense, it's here today. The only thing is that we are a bit more as a community, as a black community, we're a bit more comprehensive now. And so we need both ventures as to what those men stood for.
So you and Carolyn met. She was lovely, and you wanted to marry her, and you did, and then you had children.
Yes.
And tell me about them a little bit.
Second daughter is Dorothy, and she's a graduate of Glenbard South, right here. She grew up in this community. In fact, she grew up on the campus here at the College of DuPage. She's an attorney. She's the general counsel for all of North America, to include Canada and Mexico, for a transportation company that's corporately based out of London. And her office is right here in Warrenville now, and she's doing very good. Stephanie, my oldest child, she finished her college education. She matriculated at Michigan State University and came on back to Chicago and gained a master's. And she now resides in Little Rock, Arkansas. And she is married to a very prominent judge there. And I bring the judge in because he's Judge Wiley Branton. He is the son of Wiley Branton Sr. Wiley Branton Sr. was the attorney for the Little Rock Nine.
Yeah. So that brings us then to one of the topics in your life and one of the phases in your life that is really quite remarkable, your time with Dr. Martin Luther King. How did you meet him?
It's very gratifying to have matriculated at a college and graduated. I was offered a position at Tuskegee. We had a very outstanding organization on the campus, referred to as the Tuskegee Civic Association. The Tuskegee Civic Association was more or less the foundation for the civil rights movement in that area. When I say in that area, in the Tuskegee, Atlanta, and Montgomery area. And we were doing quite a few things there. We were protesting, we were marching, we were trying to get to more or less basically to vote. But most people didn't understand the fact that Tuskegee, the community around there, was a highly literate community. We were very sound economically, and we basically, economically, we owned the town, so to speak. But here, by the same token, we were unable to function as a normal citizen. Couldn't vote, couldn't do certain things and because of the segregation and what have you. But we fought that very hard. And we started a boycott. Well, we had a young white senator, Senator Engelhardt, who didn't like that. And so he put through a bill through the Alabama legislature to gerrymander us out of the county. And we didn't like that, and we took it to the courts. We were strong enough to take it to the courts. And we took it all the way to the Supreme Court, and we won. Lo and behold, there was a young Ph.D., Afro-American by the name of Martin Luther King, who became the pastor of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church 40 miles away in Montgomery, Alabama. Heard about the Tuskegee situation, and he visited any number of times, trying to find out what we were doing, and because he wanted to do some things in Montgomery. What happened is Rosa Parks decided one evening that she was just too tired to give up her seat, and that was more or less the catalyst for the forming of the Montgomery Improvement Association by Dr. King, creating the boycott, which lasted for over 380 some days, and we finally won that. However, the Tuskegee Civic Association, we asked General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler to provide transportation for us because blacks were walking in Montgomery rather than riding the bus. And between those companies, we had something in the area of about 20 station wagons Well, we had to go like a thief in the night to get them to Montgomery because we wanted to go down a great parade down the highway to Montgomery from Tuskegee to show forth thy praise in reference to the transportation. But the state troopers turned us around. So then we had to sneak in at nights and take one by one. But we finally got all 20 of them down in there and what have you.
When Dr. King got involved with this, with the group that you were with in Tuskegee, was that his first time in really advancing into the public arena with his thoughts and his plans, or was that one of the first times? Did you know him before that?
I didn't know him before
or know
that.
about him?
I didn't know anything about him before that. But the point is this, Martin came to us in Tuskegee. With Martin, when I discovered Martin, then I would take a group of students down every Sunday to the Baptist church in Montgomery. So I became a Baptist right quick, so to speak.
So we talk a lot about community activism. So you have this group in Tuskegee. Dr. King comes to you and has a plan. Tell me how you then worked with him and with your colleagues to really more mature and shape the civil rights movement in the South.
Well, actually, we were following Dr. King's lead. And so he decided to relinquish his pastorship of the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church and go on to Atlanta and join his father in Ebenezer Baptist Church and form the SCLC, Southern Christian Leadership Conference. But he wanted to permeate out into a national and international level. And so he could do that basically from a footprint from Atlanta rather than Montgomery. Mm-hmm. Why Atlanta? Because as you know, Atlanta has always been a mecca for highly literate Afro-American community as such. And certainly that was his hometown. So in my own mind, I thought perhaps he would become a bit more sophisticated. But no, he became a bit more combative in reference to nonviolence, if I could use that term, and what have you. In other words, he could work harder and he could get more support from the Atlanta area than he could more or less from the Montgomery area.
So he was thinking both strategically and tactically about how he could do things and what he could do. Yeah.
Right.
So he's up in Atlanta. Tell me about what your experiences were then back down in Tuskegee, and did you ever have a sense of fear or of danger that gave you pause in what you were doing?
In the Tuskegee Civic Association, I served as secretary. We were all attacked, so to speak. We all received letters and threats in the mail and things of this nature. Oh yes, we were always threatened.
So before we leave that phase of things, as you look back at Dr. King and you think about what you would say to young folks today or to folks of any age, what do you think are the major leadership lessons or the major moral and ethical lessons that you got from Dr. King in your association with him?
I guess I'll have to start with grace, love, and peace, because that's what he exemplified. In the days before I met Martin, as an athlete in college, and I had a well-seated hatred, basically, from the standpoint of race relations. I was very combative. From Dr. King's preaching, I just learned, and it was very hard, and sometimes I think about it now. It was very hard for me to love and to respect my fellow man. I just couldn't face humanity as I should, although I could get it basically from his teaching and from being around him. It was working on me more and more. In fact, I think that today I am basically colorblind when it comes to to humanity. I don't think that I really believed in the nonviolence while he was living, but I think that he basically had to sacrifice his life, and now I'm colorblind, so to speak.
Isn't that an interesting observation? So as we commemorate his assassination this week, what's a poignant memory that you have of him?
Well, Martin was a prophet to me. First of all, I'm not comparing him with Jesus, so to speak, but you know, he was born around in the Christmas time, born in January. He was assassinated around in the Easter time. Martin's last sermon was at the Episcopal Cathedral in Washington, D.C., the Sunday before he was assassinated. I talked with him just prior to that, the week before that. I talked with him. And we were arranging for a workshop at Joliet Prison. He was very interested in Joliet.
Yeah, Joliet.
And coming back to Joliet, because I had Bishop Blanchard of the Joliet Diocese at that time, and I were very good friends. And when I worked at Joliet Junior College, we served on the mayor's human relations group. And he asked me to try to get Martin to come to speak, in which he did at the Joliet Stadium. And that was the fall before he was assassinated.
So that's a nice bridge to, I think, the next thing is that you're down in Tuskegee. How did you get up to Joliet?
I left Tuskegee to take a position at the University of Arkansas. But we had a black A.G. Gaston, who was quite an entrepreneur in the state of Alabama. He was also on the board of trustees at Tuskegee University. I worked at the guest house at Tuskegee University as a student, and he remembered me. And he had a motel in Birmingham, Alabama. He wanted me to come in and run his motel. I refused, and we worked out a deal where I could purchase a situation. While in Birmingham, Martin came there with the Birmingham movement.
Right.
That was one of his great Coast Crusades. But he didn't know I was there, and I didn't know he was coming. And we met and what have you. And he said, he told me that God had sent me there so I could, have the motel there for him. And my motel was bombed and what have you. And my wife at that time said, okay, time out, everybody out of the pool. We're out of here. So I took a position as assistant to the president at Miles College in suburban Birmingham. And it's a small liberal arts black church college. I was not at all satisfied there. But I had a very good friend, a colleague of mine, while at Tuskegee, who was at Joliet Junior College. And he called to say that there was a position open, and in fact, he was Afro-American as such, and he wanted me to apply. And that's how I ended up in Joliet.
Did you go there as the business director, as the director for business operations there?
Yes, right, and as an assistant. And my boss, the vice president there, I was his immediate assistant. He was the person who was selected to be the first vice president for business at the College of DuPage, and that's why I ended up at the College of DuPage.
And who was that?
Dwayne Kirchhoff.
Dwayne Kirchhoff. So he was the first director of business operations, and then he brings you in as his deputy,
right?
As his assistant,
right?
And then that was in 1966.
Right. Well, in 1966, both Dwayne and I worked as consultants to the College of DuPage.
Right.
We worked with the Arthur D. Little study because they were doing a study. You see, in this community has had, and that's one thing I like about this DuPage community, they've always had a very excellent educational thought. They went about getting this college started in the right way. They called in consultants and what have you. And then they hired us to work with the consultants in building more or less the master plan for the College of DuPage. And in fact, we didn't even have a building, and we didn't have anything.
So you were here with Dr. Berg, the very first president.
Very first president, he hired me,
And then, so he hired you as the assistant, and then you became the director for business operations under
Hal McInerney.
Dr. McInerney. So as you look at what the College of DuPage was and what it has evolved into, and all organizations have constant movement, what is your observation about the kinds of things that the college has been able to do and what we should be doing?
Well, one thing is this, that we were not at all accepted at first. We like to think here in Illinois we gave birth to it, so to speak. But you had the Floridas and the Californias and the Michigans and all, they were developing systems.
Yeah.
But we were lagging behind, only with Joliet and perhaps LaGrange Township. Peoria had failed. Once the state of Illinois decided that we were going to have a system, create a system so that we can provide two-year education for every person in the state of Illinois, then we started more or less from a standpoint of everybody started more or less putting them systems basically in schools, community colleges together. Instantly we became accredited, more so because of LaGrange, because LaGrange joined us. And they brought in more or less seasoned faculty and administrators. You see, we had some of the great, and we still have, some of the greatest high schools in not only in the Midwest, but in the country, in the Glenbards and all of that situation. We were interested in sending our kids to Brown and to Yale and to Harvard and to the University of Illinois and things of this nature. And here you're coming in with more or less a community college, so to speak. It wasn't accepted. But now, as to what happened, I don't know. But something happened along the way, and I think it was the fact that the way we were putting the college together, that is, the leadership here, with the Rodney Bergs and all of those, and the board. Most community colleges, once they're formed, more or less raid their local school districts. But we didn't do that. That's our minor league. That's our seed base. We must keep this. Our high schools here are most prominent. We want to keep that there. For example, we want a newspaper. I don't want an English teacher that's over the newspaper. I want to bring in basically a journalist. So we went to the Indianapolis Star, and we brought in Gordy Richmond. And Gordy Richmond started teaching journalism, and our newspaper was by far one of the best in the country. So, in fact, we won awards to that effect. And that followed, permeated throughout the college as such. We won it. In fact, Rod Burke called me and says, you know, Ernie, tell me what I can do to get more minorities in here. We're not coming. I said, well, Rod, most minorities today, if they can comply with what we want here and what have you, they're educated, they have the degrees, what have you, they have jobs, so to speak. And I said, and you have an all-white situation here. I said, and a lot of them more or less are tended not to get into those kind of situations or what have you, or where they are in white situations, they're very comfortable. She said, well, what can we do? I said, well, you can't go to Los Angeles and New York and the Washington, D.C.s and get into a hotel and put it in a newspaper and wait and ask them to come in. We have to go down to the grassroots and get them. And he says, well, okay, we'll do that. Something happened along the way, however, that this community decided we really have something here. And they start supporting it. They supported through referendums, the things that we had to do. They supported it. And it was basically the staff, the faculty. We had, and we still have, the best faculty you could find, so to speak. And here, people are dedicated. They start talking about the fact that we had smaller classes. You see, Rod Berg was our first president, said to all of us, you must teach. We're not research. We're not into research. We must teach. And that's what we were about. He used to say that I may not be a good president, but I'm the best dean that you've ever seen, and stuff like that.
So your pride in this college is so real, it's so authentic, and every time I've ever spoken with you, you speak with such pride about this college, and we're grateful for that because you continue to be so involved with us. What have I not asked you about the college or about things that you would like us to know, and that for you speaks to your sense about this college?
Rod Berg, our first president, and I'm not leaving Hal Makinich out, because he was just as good. You would say to Rod or Hal, could we do such and such? And they would say, let's do it. There is a great educative legacy here in DuPage County. I think we have something that is very golden here. As I look around this campus and see the things that we're doing, we're innovative. We have always has been.
Dr. Gibson, I know how much you have expressed pride in this college, but let me say this to you too. It is our pride that you have stayed with us, that you have been so active, and you and Carolyn have been just terrific friends of the college and truly leaders about what education means. You do keep on reminding us constantly about our core mission, about educating and about caring for our people. And you have been consistent in that, you're a leader in that, and given all of that you bring to this college with your life experience, you certainly give us reason for pride and for thinking and for inspiration. Do you have anything else you might want to say, sir?
Yes, going back to Dr. King. When Dr. King was at my motel, living in my motel, the suite, and one night I was in there, he always liked warm milk at night. And one night he asked for 2 glasses, 2 pots of warm milk. And I was the only one who could serve him food, so to speak, because they didn't trust anyone else. And I went up there, and there was Bobby Kennedy. And I greeted him. And he was saying, and I looked shocked. And he said, "You're shocked?" I said, "Well, you have 2 ways." I said, "I'm shocked to see the Attorney General of these United States in my motel, and I want to know how in the hell how did you get in here?" I didn't know about it, and we had a big laugh on that type of thing. Well, one thing is I was always afraid for Dr. King because he got so many threats and whatever, and I said to him, I said, "Martin, I'm just so afraid." And he said, I'm a little sick and tired of you telling me that, because if he said, "What you want me to alter my program, alter what my feelings are and things of this nature, or my fulfillment to civilization, to humanity?" And I said, "But no, I'm just afraid for you." He said, "Well, I've been buked, and I've been scorned, and I've been talked about sure as you're born." And I wrote this down, and I'm paraphrasing here. And he says that the quality, not the longevity of one's life, is what is important. He said that if you are cut down in a moment that is designed to save the soul of a nation, then no other death could be more redemptive. And that has stayed with me all my life. I would hope that the soul of this college, that we will not be afraid of moving on and taking on the challenges of educating not only our children, but this community. The greatest thing we have, basically, is what we have created, and that's our children, our young adults, our young people. And the sad commentary that I have is the fact that we're not safeguarding that. Thank God we're doing it here at the College of DuPage.
What a wonderful way to end, sir. And I thank you so very much for yourself and for your time today. Thank you, sir, very, very much.
Thank you.